Food chief warns that more Brexit red tape will mean more empty supermarkets on the shelf. Let's have a look at this from The Independent. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here. More Brexit red tape. Nobody likes talking about Brexit, but it's not going away, and we know it's not going away, guys. So this is from The Independent, from one of the food chiefs. So, new Brexit red tape could see more empty supermarket shelves. Fears of new disruption to fresh produce supplies from the EU when import controls hit in October. Oh dear, guys. So, new Brexit red tape on EU imports could push up food prices and see more shortages in the supermarkets, industry bosses fear. Food sectors are worried that port authorities are unprepared for the implementation of a series of checks including health certificates on some animals, plants and food products from the EU that are set to be phased in from October 2023 under Boris Johnson's exit deal with Brussels. Yes, of course, we need to have our own checks, which we have not set up yet. If you guys don't know, we're kind of just waving everything through into our country at the moment. That needs to stop because, yeah, we're getting a lot of smuggling happening. So when that comes in, it's going to cause even more problems, you know. And we know that's going to happen, unfortunately. New fees on goods coming into Britain from the EU will also add hundreds of pounds to the cost of importing each lorry load of produce, business leaders told The Independent, a burden that could see small firms struggling to survive. Lots of small firms have already, sadly, have gone under or have just either moved their stuff abroad or just given up from going into the EU and just staying in the UK outright. Because they just simply cannot afford it. They just can't. It's just unrealistic for them. The British Retail Consortium, the BRC, which represents Britain's biggest supermarkets, is concerned that the next wave of post-Brexit bureaucracy will see disruption at Dover and other ports, which could in turn lead to gaps in fruit and vegetables on the shelf. Andrew Opek, the BRC's Director of Food and Stability, told The Independent that the extra checks could hit suppliers by delaying deliveries and could also push up food prices as businesses pass on the additional cost to shoppers. He said extra costs are always on the issue when we're tackling inflation, but warned that the main impact of checks could be on the availability of goods if there's disruption to the ports. Yeah, I mean, it's tough enough as it is for the port of Dover, and any disruption whatsoever could cause, obviously, food prices to rise even further, which means that we get less food on our shelves, less choices as well. And all this is going to cost. And in the end, we're going to end up paying for it, guys. That's just the sad truth. Mr. Oppy added, in the autumn, we increased imports of fresh produce from Europe that has a short shelf life. So it has a short shelf life, so it gets stuck in either Calais or Dover. It's not going to be worth anything then. Unless it's frozen, of course. But again, it depends what it is. You know, is the paperwork going to be correct? All these kind of things need to be taken into account. So it is imperative the system works well from day one to avoid impact on customers. Supermarkets are urging the government to provide ports with as much support as possible to prepare for the new checks. Unfortunately, there is a cost, and that was the inevitable consequence of Brexit, said Mr. Ope. Yeah, I'm like, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, guys, but I'm not hearing a lot of shouting from the government like, yo, here's what to do, here's some money, and I'm not hearing it. A little bit concerned, I would be. The retail expert added, the key focus, however, must be getting European supply chains and UK government checks ready for October to avoid disruption at our ports. Mr. OP will appease peers on ongoing post-Brexit problems for the food industry when he appears at the House of Lords Committee hearing on the Northern Ireland Protocol on Wednesday. The warning comes after severe shortages of tomatoes, peppers and other salad vegetables earlier this year forced Britain's major supermarkets to restrict sales, with photos on empty shelves mocked by people living in Europe. Amid fears the shortage could become even more common, the government has warned business bosses that new checks on imports from the EU will add around £400 million a year in extra costs, which is down from an initial estimate of just over £800 million. Yeah, and you can see there the you can see the empty shelves. In my area, I've seen them. I've seen the empty shelves as well. So it's not just. I mean, and I live in London. That's pretty scary, you know. If you see it in London, you hate to think what it is outside of it. It's not that bad now, but at the time when we had shortages of drivers and that, my God, it was really bad. Nick Allen, Chief Executive of the British Meat Processors Association, told The Independent that the extra burden of new paperwork and fees will see small specialist imports struggle to survive. What we will see is a decline in choice because of some of the small firms importing business produce. Bacon, ham, cheese, that part of business will fall by the wayside. Some will have to change their business model to survive. Mr. Allen, who wants a new veterinary standards deal to establish with Brussels in order to scrap the required health checks on goods. I say vegan, I said veterinary, obviously. Some exports in the EU won't bother to send stuff here because they will find other markets. Yeah, why would they want to spend more, do more paperwork when they can just go to other European markets? It's not worth it to them. Food sector chiefs have been told that the inspection fees at ports will be between £23 and £43 for each batch of goods. Each batch of goods, either between £23 and £43. But getting the extra health certificate paperwork could run into hundreds of pounds for each lorry load of procedure, one food sector leader told The Independent. Mr. Allen said suppliers would have to pass on the extra costs, meaning higher prices in shops. It will add to food inflation at a time when the real struggle for families won't make things any easier, he said. Yeah, because it's not like we've got extra money in our pockets right now. You know, we just got a, cost of living crisis, an NHS crisis, teachers on strikes, a police, confirmed an institutional racist police force as well. You know, lots of other things going on. As well as the new checks start in October, physical checks on agricultural food imports are set to begin in January 2024 before new safety and security declarations from all imports from Europe come into force next October. The government says its new border target operation module, which includes a digitalisation of paperwork and a trusted tracker scheme aimed at reducing checks, should ease some of the extra costs to businesses around about £400 million a year. Okay, we'll see about that. Former Sainsbury's boss Justin King said earlier that this year that the food sector had already been hurt horribly by Britain's departure from the EU. Even before the new checks are due to come into force, Mr. Allen said the general feeling in the food sector is that the ports are not ready. We've got quite a bit of work to do, so it could add to delays. We're going into the deep end in October. I mean, look at that. It's just insane. Companies outside the food sector are also worried about more widespread red tape on the imports starting in 2024. Tamina Clinic, founder of the fashion roundabout think tank, warned that many clothing firms cannot absorb the extra costs or even more checks. Mr. Clinic, a member of the UK Trade and Business Commission, said, instead of new checks, we need panoramic solutions to the challenges facing UK trade and the removal of trade barriers between the UK and our largest market. Research by the Federation of Small Businesses showed that nearly 1 in 10 UK firms that used to import or export have stopped doing so in the past 5 years. Tina McKenzie, the group's policy chair, pleaded with the government to minimise cost and disruption from the coming changes. It comes as the UK Trade and Business Commission, along with the British Chambers of Commerce and other respective bodies, prepared to host a Trade Unlock conference in Birmingham in June to discuss red tape and the ways to help shape policy. Yeah, and here's the thing. Once they stop, if some EU companies stop coming to us and we stop going to them, if down the road we rejoin the EU in the single market, they're not going to come back. They're not going to come back if they're satisfied with where they are. And the trust that we have between us and the EU is gone as well. That trust is also gone. So it's not like next 5, 10, 20 years, whatever it is, whenever we do finally rejoin the European Union. It's not like we're going to it's gonna be all hunky dory again. You know, it's gonna be a long process. That's what you guys need to understand. It's gonna be a long process. It's not gonna be like a couple of years, 5-10 years. We're talking 30-50 years of undoing Brexit. You know, if we even get back in the next 10-15 years. It's a long process. A Cabinet Office spokesperson says that the moves will try to minimise disruption for checks, will transform the UK border controls. They said it will create a new world-class system to provide protection from securities and biosecurity threats, while preventing delays at the border through a reduction needs for physical checks by ensuring that the new checks will take away from the ports where it is needed to allow traffic to flow freely. A spokesperson added, "We are in the period of engagement with the industry, so we will hear their views on initial proposals and work with them to expose the cost of implementing the new model." So this is not good. You know, businesses, retail industries, hospitality, they're all suffering still as a result of Brexit. Many businesses have closed down. Energy prices are still far too high. So when it comes to starting up a new business, it's an extremely huge mountain, as it is already in the UK. And being part of the EU really does help expand your operations. And we really have cut ourselves off from the EU. You know, it's like having a neighbour next door and you're not allowed to talk to or have any negotiation with. But you've got to go all the way across the road and be told to have some kind of trade deal or negotiation with them, even though they're on the other side of the road. That's essentially what this whole trade deals with, like the New Zealand, Australia. You know, they want us, because we got deals obviously with them, and we're getting nothing back in return. It's just ridiculous, really, that we've cut ourselves off from them, all because of sovereignty. So yeah, regardless of what happens in the next general election, we are going to be paying more. It's very unlikely the impacts are going to ease at any time soon, unfortunately, as disappointing as it may be. What do you guys think of this article? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, like, share and subscribe really helps support the channel, and I will catch you guys very, very soon.